Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Strategy Gaming Dojo, where we find, learn, and play the great strategy games. We are currently making a tutorial, Let's Play tutorial, for AGEODs or AGEOD, American Civil War II. We've progressed along here. We're in early June, but I thought I would stop at this point before I make the next episode and continue on with the game to talk about the three topics that I think every player struggles with when they start an AGOD game. And, AGOD has a bunch of games that cover pretty much every era. You've got the Roman uh, area era with a game called Alia Jacta Est, which is a very good game. Love that game. You can play the Napoleonic Wars, you can play the Civil War, you can play World War One. So they cover this, wide range of historical warfare, but all of the games have very similar systems. And these three topics that I'm going to talk about today, movement, stacks, and command seem to be the most confusing parts of the game to many people, and I think they keep a lot of people from trying the games or continuing on with the games. And they are really, really good games when you get to understand the interface and these different systems and how they work. So I thought as we're going along here, I was making these tutorial videos and let's play videos, and I do cover a lot of this stuff, but it's kind of one thing here in this episode and another thing in this episode. So I thought I would make an episode 0, kind of a introduction to AGOD games in general that talk about these three topics. So first of all, let's talk about movement. Um, I know people struggle with how movement works in this game, but I really do think it's very intuitive. And once you get used to it, it actually is a system that makes a lot of sense. Now, we're going to come out here out a little further west to Staunton, Virginia. We've got MJ Thompson here and the drunkard NS Evans. We are moving these guys west because we are going to, take this force with a terrible general and we're going to put these guys in it to lead it. Um, but here are their stack. So we will be talking about stacks here in a minute, but any card that you have in the game is its own stack. Um, I think of stacks as being a container. So this picture of MJ Thompson could contain 500 different things, and that would be one stack. Now, how do we move a stack? So you see these regions light up, and this is how it is in every AGOD game. It's based on regions or provinces. Um, there are, sections of every state or every country, depending on the game that you play. There will be these sections called regions. And these guys, so a stack moves from region to region, and based on the terrain or the type of transportation they're taking, you see here's rail here, so we could take rail, and we'll talk about that in a second. If there was a river where we were trying to go, you can, go by river if that's faster and you have enough river points. But for these purposes here, so first of all, MJ Thompson will come down to his special orders. The first thing about movement is anytime you come into a region and there's a town there, or a depot, or a fort, depending on the game, like in Birth of America, about the Revolutionary War, there are forts. If there's a fort, any kind of structure, you can enter that structure by hitting this button. It is kind of, you know, ubiquitous in all their games that you can enter structure by doing this, and you see it kind of lights up all red around the edges, and you will enter that structure. So there's that. So continuing on with movement, you have sortie from structure. So if you're in the structure, you can come out of the structure. This may work if somebody has you besieged in one of their games. and you want to run your cavalry out there, you can, sortie from the structure. You can force march, so you kind of go double time, right? Um, you can set an ambush, synchronize movement, which is a more advanced topic. I don't think I'll get into that here because that would take 15 minutes to explain. Let's just say that if you have cores of a similar army, or you have, in other games it may be called something different, but in this game you have an army, you have cores underneath it, and you have divisions underneath that. You can synchronize their movement with this. Now, here is rail movement and here is river movement. And then the final thing is evade combat. If you just want this stack to always try to evade combat, you can hit that button. And these are all the movement buttons. So they're the special orders here under these cross rifles, all the special movement orders. But let's say we don't want him to do anything in this region and that we actually want to get him up here to Clarksburg. How would we do that? So we would just left click on the stack, whichever stack you want to move, you left click on it and you just go put it in the region where you want it to go. And you will see the regions light up like this. So we would just go put this in the region where we want him to go, and the computer plots the best course. Now, what are these other numbers? What are these other things? So it's telling us it's going to take MJ Thompson 10 total days to get to this region. Okay. It's going to take him 8 days to get to this region. See, they just give you waypoints. So the first region he's moving to is this one. It takes him 2 days to get there. In 2 days, then his stack will appear here. In 4 days, he will make it to this region. And see, they put it on top of this little flag, so they kind of, I think that's to the sort of center of the region. Um, and you see these waypoints. Now, let's say that we say we don't want him to go all the way to Clarksburg. We just want him to go to this region. Now, you've plotted all this out, right? All you have to do to go back one waypoint is hit delete. Um, Now he's still in this region. Why they're showing him, over here. This is all the same region, just because that card moves. So 8 days, remember 8 days was what we wanted there, or what we saw previously there. Now let's say we want him back here. We hit delete again. Back he comes. 4, 2. You just keep hitting delete and he comes all the way back to his stack. Now let's say, on the other hand, that you want him to go all the way to this region again, but you don't like this course. Maybe there's a Union army, coming right here, and you're like, that could be a dangerous course. So let's delete back to, let's say, right here. Now, so you've got the stack where it is originally, then you will always see that same stack where the ultimate destination is. You'll see the waypoints, and then you can take this stack, the ultimate destination stack, and you can start plotting your own regions that you want this to go through. So we could bring it all the way out around here, and then this way. So this way, if there's a Union army here, let's say, we can bring him all the way around there by those waypoints. So you can do that region by region by just pulling the destination stack. And the way you pick these up is always hold down on the left button and just pull him wherever you want him to go. Now let's say that this is an okay region for him to go and an okay path. You're fine with that. But let's say you want him when he gets up here to to jump into this stack, because ultimately that's what we're going to try to do. Now we're going to get rid of John Floyd, but that's a whole different topic. Oh, this is a good time to point this out. When I click on this other stack for John B. Floyd, you'll see we don't see MJ Thompson's card anymore. It still plots the course. You can still see the plot. And then you've just got this circle here. So it will show this to you. All it's doing is trying to reduce clutter to where you have all of these stacks highlighted. So if you click on this again, there's MJ Thompson again. Okay, so let's say we want Thompson to be in this stack All you have to do in this case, again, pull him like you always would, put him over this stacks card, and you see those two blinking soldiers, that means they're going to merge. So when he gets up here, it says you are targeting the West Virginia force. You're targeting that force. He's going to merge into that force. Now, if you don't want him to do that, you can set him back out here. You just pull his card back out. He will now not be merging. And you will see this here. His orders are to go from Rockbridge, Virginia, which this is Rockbridge, to Clark's, West Virginia. This is Clark's. Now let's put him back up here. It's still Clark's, but you saw those blinking soldiers, and it says you're targeting that group. Okay, so let's come back here. So that's how you move these guys. Now let's say that you want instead MJ Thompson to go down here to Wyethsville. Okay, we've got this plot. Great. It's going to take him 10 days, but let's say you need him there yesterday. Let's go down to the special orders and let's tell him to use rail where possible. And you see it's now 7 days. The computer plotted that it's the fastest way to go here is to jump this region down to Liberty, jump on a train, and take the train down, and it cuts 3 days off our journey. So all you have to do is hit this move by rail. Now let's say we didn't like that. We don't want him to go down this way. We would rather he go to, I don't know, let's say Burkeville first, and once he's at Burkeville, then on to Wyethville. So we've plotted this course, right? Now let's hit rail. 20 days to 7 days, and you see it will show us the most efficient route again. Now you can play around with this. You can, take off his waypoints if you wish. Now let's say though that, we want him to, again, let's say Wyethville. I think this will work. Let's say he wants to go to Wyethville. But let's say we're going to take the train off. Okay, so it's 10 days. It's plotted our most efficient route to get him there. But let's say we want you to use a river wherever possible. We click on river, it makes no difference. As you can see here, he would just be going down the river kind of side to side or up and down. That's not going to get him there. So let's figure out a place where using the river may really help a lot. And for that, let's go down to um, let's see. Yeah, let's take these guys. This is a militia unit for New Orleans that's in New Orleans. And let's tell them we want them to come up here to Port Gibson. Now, so they're marching, up this beautiful Louisiana bayou to Port Gibson. 35 days. Seems like a long time. Let's try to have them do that by river. And there you go. This will take them up the Mississippi River, and it only takes 17 days. What is the downside to this? Why wouldn't you always use it? Well, you generally want to if it's not that big of a force, but this does take river points. And this gets into river and rail points. These are general overall for your entire country points. So it's not as if this rail has a certain, that I'm tracing here, has a certain number of points, or the Mississippi River has a certain number of points. You as a country have a certain number of points that you can use. And so that's really the basics of movement. Let's talk about ships for just a minute. Now, ships are a little tricky to get exactly where you want them, but they move exactly the same way. So let's say that these gunboats, we think, well, we don't want them all the way down here at the mouth of the Mississippi. We want them to come up here. Now, you see how the river lights up, and you'll see 8 days to get him here. He's going to go there. You also have waypoints, so let's go. See, each part of the river has a section. It's like a little section that you can see, and they light up as you go over them. So you can see these different sections, and you can plot waypoints just like you do with overland movement. I think the only other thing to talk about really with this is if you have sorry, I should use the mini map here. If you have a ship, out here, for instance, it works the very same way. So let's just say, well, we don't have any ships there. I think we have a ship up at Norfolk. Let's try to go put the ship at Norfolk or a ship at Norfolk. Um, yeah, there we go. So here's the Patrick Henry. Now the Patrick Henry, we have so let's delete all the Patrick Henry's orders. Um, and then let's pull them again. See, it moves the exact same way. Oh, whoops, let's find these boxes. There's the Atlantic blockade box. You would just set him down here. Now he's got the evade combat order that we talked about before. You always want that out in naval stuff as the Confederacy. Now, let's say we want him to be part of this group, and we do, and you see the merge symbol there, and you just drop him right on top. When he gets out here, he will merge with that stack and become part of that stack. He will no longer be an independent stack. Okay, so I think that's good for movement. If you have any questions at all, please put them in the comments. I'm trying to cover everything, but if I do forget something, please let me know that. Now let's talk about stacks and command for a second. So in this game, I'm going to click on this for just a second, put on our pencil. In this game, you have E elements. Elements make up units, and units make up stacks. EUS. Boy, what beautiful drawing that is. If you want a print of that, it's $35. Um, So elements make units, units make stacks. Okay, what are we seeing here on the map? Well, we're seeing stacks. These stacks are made up of units, which are these pictures here, and these units are made up of elements. Okay, so let's look at this wagon train, for instance. This wagon train is its own stack. You can move it around. You can tell it where to go. We've told it to go to Richmond. That's going to take 7 days. So it's moving. It's its own stack. It's also a unit. Now, if we had two in here, they would both be units. And, if we had 10 wagon trains in here, they're all their own separate units that you could move around in the game. Now, stacks are what you move on the map. Units you can move from stack to stack. And then um, ultimately, all of these are made up of elements. Now, did I describe that perfectly? Maybe not. Let's go look at a Ben Huger. Okay, Ben Huger has this little detachment out here. It's made up of all kinds of various elements, which are represented by these divots. These divots then make units of the, so these are all kind of one grouping makes a unit. So the Virginia Volunteers, if we click on it, is made up of the 36th Virginia. Okay. It's made up of the 24th Carolina, and it's made up of the Jones Rifles. Each one of these is an element. And you can see here, 1, 2, 3. We've got 3 elements that make up this unit we call the Virginia Volunteers. Then further, the Virginia Volunteers are in this stack called CSA Detachment. It so happens to be led by Ben Huger. It so happens to have a cavalry unit in it as well. This cavalry unit is only made up of one element. What is it? It's the Virginia Chargers, and you can look at them. So that's one element, but it's also one unit. Then you've got the supply, and the supply you can see has 4 elements. It's got 4 different wagons here that are part of this unit. So elements make units, units make stacks, right? Now let's say for whatever reason, we want this 4th Virginia Cavalry to not move when we move this stack. You can make your own stack for this one. Click on this, hold down the left, and just pull it out. And there we go. You see up here, index-wise, 4th Virginia Cavalry has its own stack now. It's still just one element, it's still just one unit, but now it's its own stack. And when you look back here, you can see that it's just removed from that stack and it's in this stack. Now, it's showing as the same index here, and you can see down here with the pictures because they're all in the same region. So every stack that is in this region will be shown here, right here, and you can see the picture change. When we click over on CSA detachment, we see Ben Huger because he's the leader of the stack. When we go over to 4th Virginia, they just show us a Virginia cavalryman because this stack doesn't have a leader. It is just the 4th Virginia cavalry. So let's put them. Now, if we want them to go back in there, we just merge like that. Or if you wanted to, you can pick. Oh, I might not be able to do it because he's locked. Okay, let's go back up here. So now let's look at these guys, right? So in the region where Richmond is, we have 3 different stacks. We have the Bushrod Johnson Richmond force, and we see Bushrod Johnson because we're clicked on it, right? You can also tell they're inside Richmond because of this little icon here. Now let's go to the 61 Generals pool. We see Gustavus Smith and Charles Vender here. Now let's say that we wanted Vender to be part of the Richmond force. How would we do that? Well, we just pick on his picture and we put it on top of the Richmond force. Now he's in the Richmond force. Let's take him out, put him back in the generals pool. Uh, we can make it our own stack with Winder if we want to move him separately from any other stack. Yeah, let's say we want to put Winder in the detachment. You can also do it with the index cards here. Once he's his own stack, now he's in here. Now let's take him out. You can move these around. It's very flexible. You can take these. Let's say we don't want Magruder's supply to be with Magruder. Let's take him out. Now it's got its own index card here because it's its own stack. Now, let's put him back with them and let's put Winder back with the generals pool. You can move these around and you can always move their picture where you want them to go. Now, let's say we've got Winder here. We make him his own stack, right? Let's say we want him to go to Charlottesville. Let's take his index card, which will pull his stack card up and move him over to Charlottesville. Now let's say, oh, you know what? We don't want to do that. Let's delete that out. Let's put Winder back into the 61 Generals pool. And that's how you move these things around. When you look at, Beauregard here, we've got um, these different generals. Let's say at some point we want Longstreet to have his own corps, which will happen eventually in this game. Spoiler alert. Okay, let's take Longstreet out. Now we've got Longstreet's brigade over here. Now let's say we want to give him Jones's brigade. We just pull Jones's brigade over Longstreet's force. Now they're in the same stack, right? Now let's look at Longstreet. Look at all of the elements in his unit. The unit is Longstreet's brigade. These are all the elements. You can look at them individually, including Longstreet. And these 2 units are the stack. And we'll see his picture on the top of it. The reason being is he's in command of the stack. So whatever the top unit in the stack is, that's the picture you'll see. Now let's say we say, oh, it's too early for that. These guys can't even move. Let's move them back over here. And back in they go in the proper seniority order. So Longstreet is a seniority 8. Holmes is a seniority 5. Beauregard is now he's a seniority. Oh, I'm glad I pulled this up because we're about to talk about command. Um, these generals operate on seniority. So Bonham is a seniority 94. You can see there. Longstreet we said was an 8. Holmes is a 5. So technically, Holmes has more seniority than Beauregard, but Beauregard is a 3-star general and Holmes is only a 1-star general. So when we're talking about seniority, you're looking at apples to apples when you talk about other 1-star generals. You're talking about apples to oranges when you see a 3-star general. So you in this game there are also 2-star generals. If we had a 2-star general show up here, he would slot right behind Beauregard, and that would kind of be your seniority for command. Okay, so let's talk about command again. We've now, let's see, talked about movement. We've talked about elements, units, and stacks, and how you move each of them. But let's talk about this grouping. Yes, this is the one I wanted with Magruder. Okay, so the way command works in this game, and the reason you want these generals in charge of these stacks, is that for every element, okay, so we don't have them here, but for every element in a stack, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you see the 5 over here, for every element in a stack, you want a command point. You know, it's asking for a command point for that. In this case, as you see, we've got a 1-star general, a 1-star general, a 1-star general. Every 1-star general in the game provides 4 command points. Okay, so you say, great, 4, 8, 12, we have enough. Now we look over here and we see 6. Now, why is that? Because there is a chain of command in this game. So what I want you to think of here is in this game we have armies, then corps. Here, let's just draw because I love to do that. We have armies, then we have corps, see, then we have divisions. I'd like to say I did that terribly on purpose, but I didn't. Armies are made up of corps, corps are made up of divisions. Now, early in the game, the complication is for the Confederacy is they cannot form divisions or corps. So we're left with only um, one entity that's within chain of command, a true chain of command, and that's an army. Okay? The only army that we've been able to form so far is the Army of the Potomac. So the Army of the Potomac is the only Confederate stack in this game in the proper chain of command. Johnston over here is still just the Shenandoah force. Now, if we look at his special orders, this is form an army. I believe it's either next turn or the turn after that, where he becomes eligible to form an army. And that's really based on historical trying to stay historical with the game. They don't want you running around here forming armies with every, last stack that you have. So they limit it. Right now we're limited to 3, and we're also constrained by time. They are not going to allow us to turn the Shenandoah force into an army until I believe it's July. It may be late June or early July, one of the two. And then we can form this into an army, and Johnston will then be in the proper chain of command. Later on in October, we will be able to form divisions, and then we can put those divisions into armies, and they'll be underneath the army, so it will be the proper chain of command. But as of right now, nobody's in the proper chain of command except for Beauregard's army. Okay, why did I just go on that historical rant and game rant? Because if a stack such as this CSA detachment with 7 units, 122 power, is not in the proper chain of command, their command points are cut in half. So we had 4, 8, 12. Nope, we've got 6. And that's how it works for the Confederates early in the game. It's just trying to model history, uh, trying to model the early command and control problems for both armies, really, when they were trying to come up to the modern way of commanding armies. Now, luckily, we had enough one-star generals sitting around here that this detachment, this stack, is now in proper command. It's got enough command points. Even though we're wasting 6 of them because we're not in the proper chain of command, it's got enough. Now, why is that important? Now, this is white, which means great. This is operating at perfect efficiency when it comes to command. Um, but let's look at Ben Huger, right? So Ben Huger is trying to command 3 elements. Now remember, wagon trains don't count. Don't count their elements. So Huger himself is trying to command the Virginia Volunteers. Virginia Volunteers has 3 elements. Huger is a one-star general. As a one-star general, he has 4 command points. Okay? But he's not in the proper chain of command, so he's only got 2. For every element that is not commanded properly, in this case it's 1 element, there's a 5% penalty. Um, so let's go up here to Magruder again, and let's move Whiting over into his own stack. Okay? He's providing now 2 command points to this stack. He needs 0. He's not commanding anyone. Okay? Sorry, let's go to Magruder again. Now let's take Ruggles and do the same. We'll just put him with Whiting over here for the time being. And this is going to be called D. Ruggles Force. Now they're providing 4 command, but they're not leading any elements, so they don't even need any command. But what's happened to Magruder? Now Magruder, his stack, this stack here, the CSA detachment, needs 5 command. Well, now only Magruder's left, a one-star general providing 4 command. That's cut in half because he's not in the proper chain of command. So he's only providing 2. So now we've got a 15% bonus, you'll see. Now let's move these guys back over here. They slot in seniority-wise, now providing 6. There's no penalty. Now let's go up here to the army that is in command. It's in the proper chain of command. I should say it that way. That's the proper way to say it. Beauregard's army is in the proper chain of command. Beauregard's army also has a ton of elements to command. As you can see here, he's got, well, I can tell you, there's 27 elements that need command in this entire stack. So this stack is the Army of the Potomac, of course, and you see 27, 20. Now, as a general rule, a stack may only have a maximum of 16 command points. Okay, why is that? Well, they don't want you building super armies where you have every single unit that you have in the game, every single element, all in this stack, and it's worth, 16,400. It's completely ahistorical to how wars are fought, but you could build like Megatron here in Manassas if you had unlimited command points. So they limit every stack to 16. I can tell you later on in the game, when you can form divisions, no matter how many elements are in a division only costs 4 to command. So if Longstreet at some point forms a division, that division will be a unit, right? And you'll see it, the graphical representation that it's a division. He will still be leading it, and he will be able to put 18 elements into that division. But whether he has 2 elements or 18 or 12, it doesn't matter how many elements he has there, up to the maximum of 18. A division costs 4 to command. So essentially, what you end up with are armies with 4 divisions or corps with 2 divisions. But we'll get to that. That's a little more advanced. We'll get to that in this Let's Play tutorial. The point I was trying to make here is you have a maximum of 16. So why does this say 20? Well, when you form an army, your head general, if he has any special attributes, each one of these adds a command point. So we went from 16 to 18. Okay? Now, if we flip along here to all the different elements, and I guess that's something I haven't pointed out yet. We haven't had an army this big yet till now. When you flip along here, these are all done by combat power. Our lowest combat power is this first headquarters support guy. Dandy looking gentleman. Love his coat. My God, that's beautiful. Um, these headquarters support units to me are one of the most important units in the game. So it's a unit. He's made up of one element. He's a unit himself. He comes into this army. And what does he do immediately? Because of the signal unit that he had, he's a training master, but he's got this signal level 1. That adds a bonus of 2. So naturally, you have 16 command points as a max, but you can get bonuses here to go higher than 16. That's what makes some of these really great generals very, very powerful. Now, Beauregard has 2 special, so does Johnston. You'll see here Stonewall. We're going to get him out leading his own stack because he'll get 4 bonus command points when he does that. You'll see Robert E. Lee, I think, has like 7. So you can build, depending on what other bonuses you have in there, you can build a stack that has 25 command points. So now all of a sudden, instead of 4 divisions, you could take along 5 or 6 divisions. And that's how command works. So let's go up and, oh, I did want to show you this one more time. So even with the bonuses, we've got 20, but they've got 27 elements to lead. So they're getting a 26% penalty. The maximum penalty, no matter how much you have in a stack, is 35%. It can't go above that, but that is a very severe penalty. I mean, you will be operating, we're getting down to operating in 2/5 of your, or well, you'd be operating at 3/5 efficiency with a 2/5 bonus. You just don't want any penalties if possible. Now, they're impossible to avoid early in the war. It's just impossible to avoid them. You have to have them because you need big enough armies to deter the North from coming after you. And the same as in other AGEOD games, whether it be World War One, the Napoleonic Wars. These concepts all kind of work the same. Let's go up to Johnston and let's just trace it through what's going on with Johnston. So Johnston is not in the proper chain of command. Only Beauregard is. Only this army is in the proper chain of command. So he's not in the proper chain. He is providing 12 command points by being a 3-star general. Stonewall is providing 4. So now we're up to 16, 20, 24 because we have 3 1-star generals here. So they're providing 24. Great, right? Now they're not in the proper chain of command. So you probably say, well, okay, so they've got 12. Nope. You are limited to that 16. And since he's not an army yet, he can't get bonuses either. So they are a 16. They have maxed out at 16. They're not in the proper chain of command, so they're providing 8. You see how that works? So really you're thinking about, is something in the proper chain of command? How many command points do they have naturally? How many elements are they trying to command? And how many bonuses do they have, which are only applicable if they're in the chain of command? And that's how command works. You always want to be in command, in proper command, so you're not facing penalties. As the game moves on, these big generals have a command radius, and you can have corps that go out on their own, and corps will be stacks that have divisions of their own in them. You will have corps commanders that provide command points to that stack. You will have division command division generals that are underneath them. But that's for further down the Let's Play. For now, what you got to remember is try to get things in the proper chain of command as fast as you can. It's not always possible, such as right now, but try to do that. Once they're in so that they're not halved, once they're in the proper chain of command, then you want to try to get enough general command points in the stack for the number of elements you have in there. Um, and you do that, when we bring Amistad's brigade over here, let's just put that in the Shenandoah force. Now you see we're up to 16. You get further and further out of command. So let's pull him back out. We don't want him there and make sure he's got his own stack while he's training. If Shenandoah were attacked, he's still training. He's at the mercy of whatever happens. You just want him off to his own because you don't want these guys negatively affected by having these green recruits in with them. So I think we covered the basics of movement, showed you how to move these units, these stacks. I said units, darn it. How to move these stacks around. Now, a stack could be a single unit, but you're moving stacks around the board that are generally multiple units and therefore multiple elements. So, showed you how to move stacks, and waypoints. How to move stacks with, what is this? Oh, we don't want him going up there. And I'm going to be playing from this point when we come back. So let's get him all deleted out. Same with MJ Thompson. Oh gosh, we got the MJ Thompson coming all the way down here. Good thing I saw that. Um, so I just hit delete all the way back through the waypoints. So we talked about movement. I got distracted there for a minute. We talked about movement. We talked about the special orders, the special movement orders. We talked about moving by railroad or moving by river. We then talked about stacks and how stacks are made of units, as we see. This is one stack. It's made of these units, and these units are made up of elements. And then finally, we talked about command being in the proper chain of command, armies, corps, divisions, and command points. Elements have to be commanded. Each element should have a command point that's commanding it and how to try to get there. So hopefully this was helpful, and hopefully this will help you play any AGEOD game, because these systems and the system that this game is built on, was that's how the other games are built. So if you want to play Birth of America and play Revolutionary War, it's the exact same system with just a few little twists. But once you have these basics down, you can play Revolutionary War, Napoleonic War, World War One. You can play the Wars of Secession, the 30 Years' War, Pride of Nation. I mean, they've got a ton of games. You can go back and play Roman Wars with this system. It's a great system, and I think maybe if you know how it works now, it won't be as intimidating, and you can jump into those other games. So as always, thank you for joining me here on Strategy Games Dojo. I do appreciate it. If you like this, please subscribe at the bottom. That always helps, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much.